Willkommen in einem neuen video. Welcome to another exciting video, in this case episode 13 of my figure gaming video series. In this case, I'll be discussing creating a modular playing area terrain system using 30cm square cork tiles. In this video, I'm going to be providing more detailed instructions for the creation of figure gaming terrain, specifically for micro armor. It uses a modular terrain tile system using cork tiles. The largest issue with creating fixed terrain is what type of terrain you are depicting. As it's fixed, any error cannot be easily corrected. As the creation of the terrain can be time-consuming, this is a major issue. By providing example ubiquitous terrain suggestions, this minimizes the risk of creating unusable terrain. There are many methods of creating a playing area. This video will outline a method which uses 30cm square tiles. In my example, I use cork tiles. This shows my older cork tile system, which I have updated with high quality woodland fine turf. This shows my current cork tile system. My journey has been long and winding, and I've tried many different ideas, most of which have failed. The type of surface I use on my playing area has been a good example of this, and I've tried a wide range of different flocks and different ideas. This represents my current best idea, cork tile idea that is. I make no claim this is the best solution. The point is players can create whatever cork tile solution suits them. When creating your tiles, a number of design constraints have to be followed, such as all roads and rivers must enter the same spot on a tile, allowing for them to be joined together. These can be assembled, possibly in a variety of ways, to create unique playing areas, although I have to admit I've certainly gone off the ideas of creating tiles which you can join in different ways. The rules for creating these ubiquitous tiles will be covered later in the video, but from experience I've found you need to create a specific playing area size first, or at least define it. Select a specific size, in my case 3x4 or 6x4 feet, and create an optimal layout with minimal consideration to providing flexibility in terms of how you arrange the tiles. Do not try and create a system which allows for an infinite number of tile combinations. It does not work. I've tried it many times and failed every single time. The playing area is made up of 30cm square cork tiles. These can be purchased from hardware stores, and displayed here are US produced cork tiles which happen to be 30.5 centimeters or 12 inches square in size. When purchasing tiles, ensure they are all the same size and take special note of the size you do purchase, so when you make up new tiles in the future you can obtain the same sized ones. I've several playing areas made up of European 30cm square tiles which are totally incompatible with US size cork tiles. Most packets of cork tiles contain 6 tiles. This makes 3 terrain tiles, as 2 tiles are required for each terrain tile. A small but usable playing area of 3x4 requires 24 tiles or 4 packets of tiles. The cost varies by country, but in the US each packet is typically no more than $20. Each terrain tile consists of 2 cork tiles glued together. While it's possible to use a single cork tile, each tile is reasonably flimsy, so the chance of the tile breaking may be high. However, the main reason is some terrain features, such as streams or rivers, require you to dig into the tile. This is possible if you use 2 tiles, but is not possible if you use a single tile. This image shows a terrain tile from the edge. This is one of my early tiles, so you can see the 2 tiles are made up, or you can see how the 2 tiles are made up of. Incidentally, these days I use a single tile and I don't dig the terrain into the tile, but that's a designer's choice or a player's choice. My more recent tiles use wood putty and a sander to provide a seamless edge, which looks a lot better. I also paint the edge a standard colour, in this case green, and paint light coloured areas for labelling purposes, as you can see on the left. I use a PVA wood glue designed for internal use. This is of medium consistency and allows me to easily slide the tiles around to ensure the edges are perfectly lined up. This is very important to ensure the tiles line up as closely as possible, as an error will require a lot of sanding and the possibility of gaps in your playing area. Once glued and lined up, place a heavy weight on top of the tiles, ensuring the weight covers the entire tile, and leave for 24 hours. It's critical to ensure the edges of the tiles do not show gaps between the tiles. Once the tiles have been created, paint them with a colour which is as close to the final flock you intend to use. This shows one of my earlier tiles, which uses a light green coarse flock. My later tiles use a green, very similar to NATO green on one side, and a more brown-green colour on the opposite side. It does not have to be perfect, but in case part of the tile is not fully covered, your flock with flock, you want to ensure this is not noticeable. Once you've painted both sides of the tile, then draw out the roads, built-up areas, rivers and any other embedded terrain such as swamps. This shows a river with a built-up area on an island and a road running off two of the edges. We'll discuss the optimal terrain placement on the tiles later in this video. Quick note, these days I don't pre-embed built-up areas on any of my tiles, I only do roads and rivers. This shows a tile which has been flocked. You'll see the rivers are embedded within the tile and filled with silicon. This is a poor example, and if you use the silicon correctly, you'll get a very good water effect. The roads and built-up areas are self-explanatory. This shows a river using my current flocking system. This is an early version as I have placed 4 blobs of highlight on each tile. This makes the tile very busy, so now I just have a single blob or line of highlight running along the tiles, or 2 tiles. One issue with this river system is the silicon does age. This is a tile about 4 years after it was created and the silicon has fogged up a lot. On my other terrain, I paint in a river and cover it with clear floor varnish, which gives it a shiny appearance and does not fog up over the period of time or over the years. A quick note, the flock is applied using hobby PVA wood glue. First, apply the glue to the tile, scatter the highlight flock on one side in a blob or line. This shows 2 types of tile with a blob of highlight in the center. Then tap the tile around to spread the flock and then cover it with a base flock. On the left is a green blend and on the right is brown blend. Tap the tile and shake off the loose flock. Wait for 24 hours so it's fully dry. Once all the flock is applied and dry, you need to spray it with a glue mixed water mix using a sprayer. 33% glue or 20% glue in some cases, 66 to 80% water, and a small amount of dishwashing liquid is what you need to create. Shake very well, that is the container, and then spray, making sure the entire tile gets a good covering. When spraying PVA glue, use a craft PVA glue. In all other cases, I suggest the hardware quality wood glue, but for the spraying, I use a craft glue which is thinner and flows better, as well as taking longer to dry. When you spray PVA glue over the tops of your flock tiles, you can use a craft spray container, which I purchased from a craft shop. One of these spray bottles normally allows me to cover 4 tiles. Don't skimp, as if you do not cover the flock, you'll end up with moulding flock everywhere whenever you play a game. The detergent is used to soften the water so it flows better. As up to 33% of the liquid will be craft PVA glue, this is important, otherwise the spray container will not spray particularly well. After you use the spray container, make sure you wash out all the glue and run clear water through the sprayer so you can use the spray bottle again. This shows one of the benefits of using 30cm cork tiles. I pack a 3x4 playing area within a single cardboard box. This shows 2 boxes. You'll see the labelling along the top. R1 means right tile 1 and so on. Each box contains a unique 3x4 playing area. On the reverse side of the tiles you can combine 2 boxes of tiles to create a single 4x6 playing area, that is feet. I have a further 2 boxes of terrain tiles and the 2 spare tiles you see on the left, allowing me to create a single playing area 6 by 8 feet in size. However, I found a 6 by 8 foot size playing area is simply too big and I've only ever used it once. The most common gaming playing area is 3 by 4 feet, and some of my friends do prefer 4 by 6 feet. When we run mini competitions, I have a terrain which allows for 4 playing areas, each 3 by 4 feet, which 8 players can use. Later I'll show you a larger tile, a 60cm square tile. However, it's difficult to transport, so I've never used them and will probably dump them in the future. The original flock I used on the terrain board is reasonably coarse, as this is required to ensure terrain sticks to it, and it's very cheap, which is really its main benefit. In this case I use Jorgen Malgrün or standard green. As you'll end up using a lot of flock, select one which is not too costly. You'll need several shades of green to obtain the desired cultivated look. A dark green, a light green and a light brown is all you normally use. For swamps I use a fine grain green blue flock, but only because I never place other terrain on it and there's not much of it. Originally I flocked the roads, but I found I got a better effect by not doing this. If you do flock the roads, you need to use fine flock. However, today I use a much higher quality flock, in this case woodland fine turf. It's more expensive, but quite frankly provides a much better effect. When creating the terrain tiles, no raised terrain is attached to it, such as hills. This allows the terrain tiles to be easily stored and also allows you to vary the hill position and numbers based on your scenario. This is an example of some hills. You will notice that these are flocked in the same manner as the terrain tiles. I can use up to 3 levels with lips which can fully fit an element, which in my case is 3 centimeters. All hills should fit within a terrain tile, so allowing for some clearance, the largest tile is a 24 centimeter square tile or hill. I find the most common hill is 2 layers, and which is a 9 centimeter square, but players can create whatever type of hill they desire. In the end, and after playing quite a few times with this system, I ended up with just simply 1 layer hills, which are typically 1 element wide by 2 elements deep. The hills are cut out using a jigsaw with a fine blade. I use a standard set of templates which I've made from a thick cardboard. You can place these templates on a 3mm thick MDF board and draw the outline. Then use a jigsaw to cut it out. If the hills are multi-level, glue the levels together using PVC wood glue, making sure they are pressed together tightly and left to dry for 24 hours. Then paint them the same green as you do the tiles. I normally paint the bases as well, although this is not required. The final step is to glue a piece of green flock to the base. This allows the hills to stick to the terrain tiles. If you do not do this, the hills will slip and move around. Just as an interesting note, these days I spray these pieces of terrain. It gives me a better effect. This shows the hill from its edge. You can see the felt can be seen, so you need to select the felt colour as close to the flock colour as possible. Creating terrain requires you to develop your artistic side. I can generally fit all my terrain in a single plastic box, as can be seen here. The terrain selection is all I need to fill up a 3x4 foot playing area. The kind of scale I normally use for gaming is 1 element equals a company or battalion. At this scale I've found the most common terrain features are 1 base width by 2 base deep in size. This applies to hills and woods. I do have a number of 1 base width square hills, which I do use as well, but I rarely deploy more than 2 to 3 in my playing area. I also have some 1x4 base width hills, which I do use, but only maybe 1 to 2 on my playing area. My woods use the same area terrain pieces as my hills, except I cover it with a coarse woodland flock, which gives me a kind of a woody type effect. I've tried many different types of swamp. In this case, it's a swamp which is basically the same as a hill, painted in different coloured and covered with clear floor varnish. I don't like this colour, and since then I've created one which is a more darker kind of green-blue effect, which looks a bit better, but I think you'd get the idea. For water features, I use a hill-sized piece of thick paper, painted blue, and then felt glue to its rear. The terrain is then covered with wood varnish to give it a bit of a shiny effect. Because felt sticks so well to my flock-covered terrains, I use it for a wide range of additional terrain types. Using the templates I created for my hills, I've created a range of felt pieces in a number of different colours to represent different terrain types. In practice, I only use 1 colour to represent woods and cover it with lichen, but if you want to have open woods and then heavy woods, you do need 3 colours to play with. While less common, you can also use felt for roads. While the terrain tiles have roads on them, if you wish to add extra roads, you can do so using the system. If you place a hill across the road, you will need a felt road to run over it. As a result, you need to ensure the road colour on the terrain tiles is the same as the road colours of the felt that you're using. I normally have a sheet which I cut out as required before a game. I have created a large number of extra terrain pieces, all of which have felt on their bases, so they stick to the terrain tile. You'll see a hedge in the top of the image, which is self-explanatory. The square terrain tile pieces on the left represent fortifications. They can fit an element and have an edge made up of wood putty. If your elements are in a line, the edge is only to the front. If by the cells or on the edge flows accordingly. On the right are emplacement markers, which is used in Corps Commander for communication and artillery purposes. Players can create whatever terrain features are required for the rules they commonly use. This shows my early aircraft stands and some terrain pieces which are designed to replace built-up areas. In the box in the bottom are three small 3 cm square terrain pieces which have a road running through them. They are designed to be placed in on the 3 cm square built-up spot on the playing area. I have larger ones for the large built-up areas as well. This allows me to reproduce a very undeveloped area, such as the approaches to Stalingrad in 42. It also allows me to depict different ground scales, which is especially useful for ancient figure gaming. On the top of the screen and the box containing 3 cm square is an aircraft stand on its side. The aircraft stands come in 4 heights, nap for helicopters, low, medium, high. The aircraft are placed on the blue felt and normally stick very well, especially if the aircraft have bombs or other protruding metal which can catch on the felt. The base is thicker and heavier, so it's stable. This allows me to deploy aircraft without needing to insert any metal stands into it. If I was going to redo these stands, which I did, I would use 2 3mm MDF boards for the blue aircraft stand, which is much thinner than what you see here, and I did do this. I would also reduce the thickness of the green base, and I actually went through and did this as well. This shows how the aircraft stands are used. In this case, a Soviet light bomber is flying over some German tanks close to a larger built-up area. If I did this again, I would make the base the aircraft sat on much thinner, so it's not so visible, which I actually did. My new aircraft bases do look a lot better. You'll notice that my terrain tiles may have some built-up areas in boring grey. Most of my new ones have no built-up areas. This is, but nonetheless, if you're going to be deploying built-up areas onto a playing area, this is one very cheap option. It's basically a piece of MDF board with balsa wood that's flocked and coloured accordingly. I don't use these at all anymore. I now use actual metal figures of buildings which look a lot better. This shows the built-up areas deployed in a playing area. You'll notice the elements are occupying the built-up area on the left. They fit neatly on top of the flat-roofed buildings. The tanks in the centre are fortified using the fortification terrain pieces I showed earlier. The woods, represented by dark green felt, have lichen on them, and in the far right you'll see elements embedded in such a wood. I would also suggest investing in a cardboard sky using sky blue cardboard glued to a thick cardboard base. This allows you to take pictures of your game without seeing unwanted domestic items in the background, such as Playboy magazines or dating site application forms. While my balsa wood built-up areas are low cost and work, they don't look very good, so I've moved to a system which uses metal houses arranged onto a BUA or built-up area base, as you can see here. As with all my movable terrain, the base of the built-up area has a piece of felt glued to it so the built-up areas stay put. Originally I purchased 1 litre cans of house paint for my terrain pieces, and while for the base green this may still be a good option, these days I use sample pots of paint. They are easier to use, are much cheaper, and allow you to have a wide range of colours to play with. I normally purchase these for my water features and my roads. If you do want to go down the embedded water feature path, in order to create realistic water features, I need to gouge away part of the cork tiles. After trying many methods, in the end the best was using a router. This is an example of a small and low-cost router, which is still the most expensive item in my gaming tools, apart from the figures. Always use protection for your eyes and be careful when using it. Selecting the correct router bit is also rather important. This shows you the effect of the routing tool. In this case, the stream is 1 cm wide, and I used a 1 cm wide routing bit. If the river is wider, such as 3 cm, you need to run the router along the river 3 times. Then use a chisel to smooth out the base of the river, paint, and after you've sprayed the whole tile with bonding glue, fill the river with silicone sealer. When I need to make a curve cut or a very long cut, I use a jigsaw. Always make sure you wear protective gear, especially eye protection. If you lose an eye, it'll affect your ability to read figure gaming rules, and without that, life would not be worth living. As you'll be cutting 3mm thick MDF board, it's important to use a fine saw bit. To assist with curves, the bit should be as small as possible in terms of height based on this image. This allows you to make those turns when creating hills. After using all sorts of power tools in the cutting of my MDF boards, I discovered that if the cut was straight, a simple handsaw was the best solution. The cut would be nice and straight and there would be no need to prepare all sorts of power tools and don protective gear. To assist with woodworking, I purchased a small folding bench and a cutting block. This arrangement is small and can fold away easily when you do not need it. It allows me to cut with a handsaw or a jigsaw, or allows me to route the terrain tiles for water features. I also use this arrangement for the creation of my storage boxes. You'll notice that the tiles at the top have streams in them, which were created with my router, painted and filled with silicone. Make sure you apply the silicone after you've sprayed the tile with glue, otherwise the stream will discolour. This is my playing area tile set. At the bottom left is my desert terrain, which I do not use very much at the moment. The 4 boxes in the centre contain my European tiles. These can be 3x4 or 2 4x6. These can be 4 3x4 feet or 2 4x6 or a single 6x8 foot playing area. The 2 spare tiles at the top are required for the 6x8 foot configuration. I actually pack a single box in luggage for air travel. I hope I never have to explain to customs what they are. The weight is reasonable and I normally pack a single document box with figures as well as some terrain in a single medium-sized bag. I have to pack my undergarments in my hand luggage as the gaming material is far more important than trivial factors such as personal hygiene or comfort. This section of the video covers designing the playing area. The first thing you need to do is determine the size of your playing area. Assuming you want to complete a game within a day, a player should have no more than 50 elements, averaged out over a game. A 12 game turn game can be completed in under 4 hours, and a 24 game turn game in under 8 hours, assuming a friendly non-competitive game. And this pretty much applies to any set of rules. The description of how to create tiles or playing areas is simply one way of creating tiles. Players may prefer other systems, of which there are many. The important point is to work out your own system and stay with it, so you can always ensure the tiles can fit together correctly. Let's look at some example playing areas that you may consider. This shows an example 3x4 foot playing area. This is a medium density playing area. The playing area on the left is what you would create, and the one on the right is the playing area with woods and hills added. It's critical to ensure you have a good density of terrain. Even for desert conflicts, hills should be used, as there are always places to hide even in the desert. If you do not have enough terrain, then your ATGWs can kill anything within 250 centimetres, assuming you're playing a squad or platoon scale game, which is pretty much everything on the playing area. This shows you the reverse of the tiles, in this case representing a highly dense playing area. You can always lower the density of the playing area by replacing the built-up areas with clear terrain. The roads can then be strategically covered by other terrain pieces, such as hills or woods. This set of 12 terrain tiles allows me to represent almost any terrain in Europe, from the developed west of Europe to the undeveloped eastern Russian area to even the hilly terrain of Italy. The Italian terrain requires you to deploy a lot of hills on the playing area, in some cases a stream running from flank to flank. Streams can always be deployed using blue felt. This sticks very well to the flock. If you look at the two sides of the tiles, you'll notice in many cases you can use either side of the tile in a given playing area to give you a bit more variety. What we have here is 2 sets of 12 tiles. Each set of 12 tiles can act as a single 3x4 foot playing area. When joined, they can form a large playing area, 4x6 feet, with play occurring along the short or even the long axis if you so desire. This configuration also uses 2 3x4 foot playing areas, but configured to form a single 4x6 playing area. Players along the long axis, and this would be what I would use if I was going to change the scale from, let's say, 1 in 2000 to 1 in 1000 if playing a squad element scale game. There is one problem with a Cork tile-based terrain system, and that is the joins. They do not look very nice, and while it's tolerable on a 3x4 foot playing area, on a very large playing area, quite frankly, it looks terrible. The other problems is if you're going to transport 4 boxes around, that represents an awful lot of weight. That is, if you want to have a truly huge playing area. I used Cork tiles in the past because I could pack it in a bag easily, one packet. But these days I do not fly around as much and get to my venue by car. In a car I can transport terrain pieces which are 2 by 3 foot in size, or even 3 by foot in size. This shows two 2 by 3 foot MDF boards, which only has a single join. It looks a lot better and is my primary playing area these days. While this video mainly covers creating terrain for micro-armour conflicts, I must point out the terrain can also be used for other figure gaming periods, such as Napoleonics. And so we come to an end of my part 13, or episode 13, my figure gaming video series, in this case my modular terrain creation system presentation. Alle guten Dingen, kommen zu einem Ende.